Let's get started. Well, quick, honest question to kick us off, and you can answer this in one of your head. So, how many leads are sitting in your CRM right now that you never realistically going to call? Here's the thing nobody says out loud, and the problem on most sales and marketing team was never that you don't have enough leads. You have plenty of leads and you're drowning in leads, but the problem is you have no reliable way to know which one of them are worth your morning. And that gap is what this session about. So drop a few questions in the chat and we'll grab a few and save the rest for the end. So quick introductions. I'm Eve and I work in marketing here in NextLM. I've spent the last few years doing this across agencies, big corporate brands, and startup. I'm your host for today, which mostly means I'll get us started and then get out of the way later. Because the person you actually want to hear from is Julia. And Julia is our founding account executive. She's built on sales process here, basically from scratch. And before that, she spent over a decade as a top performer who closes deals on their first call. So when she tells you what works in outreach, that's not just theory. Julia's also doing the heavy lifting today, so I'll come back at the very end to wrap us all up. And here's the whole idea in one sentence. Most teams already have names, lists, and leads, and what they almost never have is timing. So let's think about that. You can know exactly who your ideal customer is, have their name, their company, their email, but we still have no idea whether today is the day they actually care. A name tells you who, but it doesn't tell you when. So everything we cover today is built to close that gap, the one between having a name and knowing the timing. So by the end, we'll know who to contact, when to reach out, what to actually say, and we'll use two simple frameworks to get there. And here's the five questions that by the end we'll be able to answer. One, what is buyer signal? Two, how do I know which lead is worth acting on? Three, how do I turn a signal into a natural outreach angle? Four, what do I actually do next? Five, how do I make this a weekly habit? And that's the perfect place to hand this to the person who turns this into an actual conversation. So, Julia, over to you.
Okay, amazing. And I think I fixed the chat, so hopefully it works. But thanks, Eve. Okay, so let's start with the basics. Signal is essentially just evidence that someone is doing something, not saying they might. The distinction is the whole game. So there's what people tell us they might do someday, and then there's what their behavior is actually showing us they're doing right now. A signal looks like someone researching homes in a new city, comparing insurance providers, reading up on the same problem over and over, sitting on pricing pages, showing the same interest and in a repeatedly short window. Now, none of that is someone filling out a form that says contact me. This is what happens before that step. So it's what they do when they don't think anyone's watching. It tells you the specific person, the timing, and the problem that they're trying to solve. Okay, so why are we spending 30 minutes of your day on this? Let me give you the number that makes the case. So generic outreach, the kind that comes from just working down a list, gets about a 3% reply rate. Outreach informed by one real signal, something that tells you this person is thinking about this right now, lands somewhere between 15 and 25%. That's 5 to 8 times better from the same amount of effort. So here's the other half of it. Reps spend less than a third of their week actually selling. The rest disappears into working lists that we're mostly never going to reply. And if you're in sales, that you can understand the pain that is just cold calling dead leads. It's an absolute nightmare. So this isn't about doing more. And please, honestly, just don't do more. It's about knowing which one thing out of everything that's in front of you is worth your next 10 minutes. So you open the tool and you see hundreds of signals. Your instinct is going to be to process all 100. And our goal in this call is to teach you to resist that. You do not need 100. You need one lead with one clear story. And a clear story looks like one of these. Repeat behavior around the same topic, activity tied to a life event or a business change, or a clean match with your ideal customer. You need the one lead that most clearly shows movement right now. The clearest why now is what wins. So, like on NextLM, to make that even easier, every prospect gets a score from 0 to 100, sorted into 3 bands. So, 75 to 100 is high, strong recent activity, clear pattern. These are your first move. Reach out within the first 24 hours because the window opens now and it's a very short window. The point of the score isn't to think for you, it's to tell you where to start. So, you're not staring at 100 names wondering who's worth a shot. So let me show you what this is actually going to look like when you're in the platform, because so far this has all been a concept. This is a real estate brokerage using NextLM to recruit agents in San Diego. So let's look at Joe. His auction score is 95 out of 100, and he is 95% more active than any of the other buyers we're tracking. But the score isn't actually the interesting part. Obviously, it helps, but it's the story that really does it. So look at what he's been doing in order. So first he was researching licensing, then exam prep, state portals, certification. Then his behavior shifts. He moves to brokerage comparisons, commissions, splits, the economics of where to work. Then again to mentorship pages and team structures. That is not random browsing. That's a person walking through a career decision, step by step, right in front of you over a 6-week time frame. And the system is reading a compressed window now with repeated visits, final comparisons, and Joe is very close to making a decision. So the question should be, here's the question that should be going through your head. The brokerage that reaches out now while he's still deciding has a completely different conversation than the one that calls him next month after he's already signed somewhere else. Same Joe, but wildly different outcome. The only variable is timing, and that's the whole case for paying attention to signals. Okay, so you found Joe. You know he's worth your time. Now comes the part that everyone seems to panic about. How do you reach out without sounding like you're reading his diary and being an absolute creep? So here's the trap. You know all of this stuff about Joe. The temptation is to use it. Like, hey, Joe, I saw you were comparing commission splits for 4 minutes and 32 seconds on Tuesday last week. I would block you if you said that to me. So please don't do that. That's the fastest way to get blocked. So we use a method called reach. The whole idea fits in one picture. A signal comes in, it runs through 5 small decisions, and what comes out the other end is one sentence the prospect is genuinely glad to read. The signal itself never leaves your head, only the angle goes out the door. That's the one rule for this whole section. The signal informs the message. It never appears in the message. That is the key to this. So let's walk the 5 letters. So let's look at R, read the signal. Before you write a single word, just name what happened. That's it. Plainly, no interpretation. In our example, a marketing director is showing interest in outsourced content production. That's it. That's R. You don't need to add anything. Don't jump to the sale. Just look at what's actually in front of you first. And you'd be amazed, honestly, how many people can't tell you what their prospect actually did. Now, E, extrapolate the concern. Now we take what we saw and we ask one question. What is this person trying to figure out right now? Not what they want to buy. And this is where the pain points come in. You're trying to figure out what is it they're trying to solve. What are they trying to figure out? Someone researching outsourced content production is probably deciding to build a team in-house or bring in outside help. The signal doesn't tell you that they're ready to buy anything from anyone. It tells you what's on their mind. And that is the big difference. It changes everything about how you write to them. Okay. So A, anchor to their world. This is where most outreach gives itself away in the first 7 words. If your opening line sounds like it came off a pitch deck, then you're not going to get a response. I just delete those emails. So picture how this person actually talks about their own job. A marketing director doesn't lie awake talking about solutions. They think about content capacity, bandwidth, output, speed. Use their words. It costs you nothing. You can put it into ChatGPT, whatever you want to do, find out some buzzwords that work with them. And it's the difference between sounding like a vendor and sounding like someone who actually knows what they're talking about. And you can become the expert because you already know what they're thinking about. So let's look at C, connect through relevance. By now, you know what happened, what they're probably wondering, and how they'd phrase it. So here's the move. What can you offer them for free right now that's actually useful? In our example, you can share what similar teams weigh it when they're making this exact build versus buy call that's valuable to them, whether or not they ever reply to you. You're being useful before you've asked for anything. And almost nobody does that, which is exactly why it works. Okay. So H, hand them the door. After all of that work, they ask the ask has to feel weightless. Something like happy to share if it's useful. That sentence does two jobs at once. So essentially it makes saying yes effortless, but it also makes saying no completely fine. So you're giving them that out there, and it kind of calms the mood down a little bit. Nobody feels cornered by it, and people say yes far more often than they know they're allowed to say no. So let's put all five together now. So here's everything we just did, collapsed into one chain. Signal observed a marketing director is interested in outsourced content production, likely concerned build in-house versus bring in an agency. Outreach angle, share what similar teams consider when making that call. And the message that actually goes out reads like this. Curious whether you're weighing building content production internally versus bringing in outside help. Happy to share what the trade-off has looked like for similar teams. So now you've given them some options there. Nothing in there mentions what we saw. You're not saying you know what they read. Nothing in there could have come from watching someone's browser history. It just sounds like good timing and a useful offer. And that is reach. That's what turns a signal into relevance. Okay, so let me make the rule unforgettable with one side by side. The signal, someone's been researching homes in New York. This is the wrong way. The signal is visible. I saw you were browsing homes in New York. Very deeply unsettling. I would be very uncomfortable, and I'd probably call the police. Right away, where the signal just informs the message. Would listings in New York be relevant for you right now? Completely different feeling. This is the right way to do it. It just sounds like you've asked the right question at the right moment, and it genuinely starts to feel like fate for them. All the stars are aligning. And that's the whole skill, using insight behind the signal, never the signal itself. Make yourself the expert and make it seem like you walked into their life at the perfect time. So now we know how to pick a lead. We know how to write to them. We know reach. What comes next is read. So read is a system, so you're not reinventing this from scratch every week. R is read the story. What decisions is the person in the middle of right now? E, evaluate the friction. What's most likely stopping them before they even say it? A, angle the outreach, build the message around that friction, and keep the signal invisible, the way we just practiced. And D, deploy the sequence. Three touches, one reactivation, then reset. Signals only create value when they change what you actually do next, and read is how you make sure they do. So let's run a real one. You can meet Jeff. Jeff looks like an experienced agent weighing whether changing brokerages would get him a better mentorship, support, and earnings. He's mid-decision, not just window shopping. So evaluate the friction. The most likely thing in his way, every brokerage has told him the exact same story. He's skeptical by default. So your message is really a test of whether you could sound any different from the last five people who called him. With R and E down, we have two processes left. A, the angle, the outreach. Lead with comparison, most reps skip. The gap between the commission split they quote you and what you actually take home after support costs. Don't open with your brokerage's name. They really don't care about that right now. Then it comes down to D, deploy the sequence. So let me elaborate on D, deploying the sequence to create a whole system. So day one, we angle the message, signal informed, focus on the friction, one easy door to decline under 5 lines. Something like a lot of agents in San Diego hit a point where their brokerage stops making economic sense. Happy to share what the comparison looks like. Day 3, if no response, the insight drop. One counterintuitive observation, then a soft question. One thing agents often miss is the gap between a stated commission split and actual take home once support costs are counted. Happy to walk through that math. Day 7, if still nothing, the permission pause, 2 sentences, clean exit, door stays open. I'll leave it with you. If timing ever shifts, I'm easy to find. And if they've gone quiet through all 3, wait 30 days, send the reactivation, still evaluating brokerage options. Last question, and it's one that decides whether any of that matters. How do you make it a habit instead of a thing you did once at a workshop? Consistency beats perfect timing every single time. So here's the routine. Pick a day. It doesn't have to be a Monday. If Friday's your planning day, pick Friday. Add a 10-minute recurring block, same save search every time. And you can pull out your calendar and do this now. And each week, do the same 4 things. Review one lead, write one line, send it, or save it. Got it in there? So that's good. That's the only decision you ever have to make about this again. Now, Eve, I'm going to hand this back to you so you can tie it all together.
Well, thank you, Julia. Let's tie it off. So 5 questions and 5 answered during this session. 1, a signal is evidence that you should reach out to your prospect now. And 2, what's worth acting on is the prospects with the clearest pattern. And 3, the reach method works because the signal helps us write the messages, but we never directly say we were creeping on them. And 4, your loop is read. We read the story, evaluate the friction, angle the outreach, and deploy the sequence. And 5, the habit is 10 minutes on the same day, same search every single week. And if you want to go deeper, 2 things is that you'll get the recording and the slides in your inbox, and we will write a weekly newsletter called the 3% Rule with short notes on signals and timing and more examples like the one Julia walked through today. So feel free to scan the QR code in this slide and the newsletter to check out NextLM. And now, since we have a bit of time left, let's open it up and drop a few questions in the chat if you have one. So, like, what came up to you while we're going through this? But I already see a few questions
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you, Stephen. Sam, okay, so getting back within the 24 hours, the great part about our system is it's actually going to give you kind of a timeline window and explain why reaching out now would make the most sense. You know, when they're a little bit earlier on in their search, you can start doing a bit of a drip marketing campaign. But the goal here is we're finding you people who are actively looking right now so that there is a sense of urgency there. And we're bringing you, the reason why we're bringing you those leads today and not someone else is because those are the people we want you to work on today. So it's not that they may be gone. It's just they may start kind of creating their short list at that point, and it's a lot harder to get in on the short list. So let me look at the other questions. Okay, so enterprise B2B perspective. I'm looking. Sorry, look at the other questions here. So we don't have an enterprise B2B look example on this one, but we can definitely, Chelsea, chat after this. If you want, we can send you some examples or run a search with you so you can see what it would look like and then kind of talk through the approach on that. So as far as the data segmented, so it depends. We use individuals to identify our signals and identify resolution, and we resolve for the business in B2B and individuals in B2C. Okay, so Amr, the real estate recruiting example is compelling, but NextLM works across different industries. Does the signal to action framework shift depending on whether you're selling to finance, insurance, or recruiting? What changes? So with the way that Stuart works, so Stuart is our AI agent. The great thing about him is you can put in your email and he will learn literally everything about you in about 30 seconds. Our signals are not shifting based on what industry you're in, they are always going to be focused on finding people who are showing buyers intent and showing that they're actually looking for what you're selling. So the signals are always showing that the same thing in that sense, but it just depends on the timing. So if they're at, a 70 versus 95, we're at a different time frame there. We're at a different point in the, I guess, browser journey, because when I'm at a 70, I am still pretty deep in there, but I'm still evaluating different competitors. I'm looking at different options, and I'm not creating a short list just quite yet. How far along are the prospects in the buyer journey? Are they ready to buy? So it really depends. Sometimes with the people that we're talking to, they might be deep in research, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're ready to buy right this second. They might be doing a full analysis so that in the next quarter, when they are ready to make their decision, they have all the information they need. So that is what's so great about this, is now you can build that relationship so that when the time comes, they already know your name. You've already reached out. You found out that they exist six weeks before the competitors know anything. So that's what really makes this stand out. Is it might not be, it might not be. Sorry, just a second. It might not be someone ready to buy right now, but they are definitely showing those buyer signals. Okay, sorry, my chat is just loading here. Eve, is your chat loading?
Yes, the next question is, I have Zoom info signals, and how are these different?
Okay. Just give me 2 seconds. Okay, so Zoom info is quite a bit different. They're showing someone who, rather than what we're doing, which is showing you Tom Smith is looking at this website, this article, this um, essentially this business, all these different things. We are showing you live intent. Zoom info is static. So we are showing, like, we actually update our signals every 4 hours. So it, rather than Zoom info, they hand you some information. Someone from this company has been looking at your profile. We are constantly updating it. That's why when you're exporting the information, you're getting just the contact information. Because if I were to send you all of the narrative in a CSV, 2 hours from now, they could have done something completely different, and it would kind of be pointless for us to look at what they're doing. So that's the real difference. Is this is a dynamic approach. It's constantly updating, it's constantly changing, and that's why this works so well. Because I last week I was doing a demo. There was a guy who was he was he pours pavement. He wanted to find some residential people. When we first started looking at the lead, it was showing, okay, they want to do their driveway, but they're looking at competitors. And then the narrative shifted. This is like 2 weeks after, or sorry, when we first looked at it, it was a couple weeks ago. Called me last week, we were talking about it. 2 weeks later, now they're showing that it turns out it wasn't just to pour concrete for a driveway. The previous people that they looked at, and they were looking at some legal advice as well, poured their driveway, and there was a giant foundational crack down the middle. They couldn't use it. It was dangerous. And now they're trying to find someone who specializes in fixing that. So now not only do they know that it's a legal issue that they had with someone else, they also know that it's a foundational issue. And now you can go in and pretend that you had no idea, but you're an expert. And hey, do you have anything in this situation that you would need help with? So now you become the expert here. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Yes, Sam recently sent one, Julia.
Okay. Yeah, again, Sixth Sense is similar in that sense, where it's just giving you someone who's at a company who's looking at what you do. It's completely different. We do not scrape data, and there's a reason we don't scrape data, because it's not helpful. It's taking static information that's could be from 6 weeks ago, and it's not necessarily relevant anymore. It's also pulling information from people who have submitted a form. They could have sent that information to someone 6 weeks ago, exactly what we're talking about. And we want live data. We want constantly evolving data because the narrative is constantly changing. Maybe something pops up where it needs, now they need to move faster than they did before. Before they were just browsing, now they need to move forward. And that's the big difference. There's a reason why 6sense and Zoom Info aren't doing well, because they just didn't evolve with the times. We own the data. We have own a data company. We work off 3 other data companies. We own the data of over 700 domains. So if you are a Hilton's Rewards member, we do own your data. And we track over 350 million people, and that's pretty hard to beat. And that is why we're doing better. And that's why we're changing the game, because we don't want to be like 6sense and Zoom Info. We want to be, first of all, we guarantee our data, we guarantee the contact information, because we don't want to be sending you 1,000 leads and only 25 of them have accurate data. We want to be accurate, and we want this to be successful. We want it because we are in sales. We saw the gap in the gap in the market, and we said, this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make sense that we're accepting this. So that's where we're different. How often do people get suspicious? Depends on how you approach them. I had one of my old clients say, I saw you were reading through this article from Forbes. They got suspicious. They were a little weirded out. But honestly, the thing is, a lot of people are used, like, I always make a joke that when I say something on Instagram, 2 minutes later, I'm getting ads for it. People know they're being tracked nowadays. So they're, I had a guy tell me the other day, he called the guy and he goes, that's crazy. I was just researching this. And they're not even shocked anymore. But if they are confused and asking how you got their information, you just say you work with a third-party provider who finds people who are actively looking for what I sell. Now, so if someone is looking for work to be done, could the score be too high if they are looking for contractors? Should we be looking at lower scores? I actually love this question, because for me, I like to do a range. I like to do a range of 70 to 95. And the reason I do that is because sometimes those 95s are amazing. If you have kind of a one call close situation, great. If it's something where they need to kind of you need to build a relationship, I do like those 70s, because they're looking, but they haven't quite made their decision yet. And then you can start chatting with them about what you do. You can speak to their pain points because they exist. And now you can basically sound like kind of their advisor, and you could come in as a consultant approach. And that's where you're going to hook them, because they're looking, what they're looking for, and you come in at the perfect time.
Well, it looks like we're right on time. So let's go ahead and wrap things up. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking your time to be here. And we hope you're leaving with a practical framework for turning buyer signals into action. And we'll send the recording and slides to everyone who registered. So keep an eye on your inbox. And again, if you'd like to continue learning, feel free to scan the QR code on the screen to subscribe to the 3% Rules newsletter, where we'll be sharing a short insights on buyer signal and outbound strategy each week. And you can also explore NextLM to see how AI helps sales team identify buying signals and prioritize outreach with better timing and context. So thank you again for spending this part of your day with us. And we hope to see you at another NextLM workshop soon. And have a wonderful rest of your day.
And if anyone ever wants to ask any more questions, feel free to email me or connect with me on LinkedIn. I love this stuff. So happy to chat, happy to run you through some searches on just a mock demo.
Yeah.
But enjoy the rest of your day, guys.
Thank you.